Market Day Report. Glad you're with us this morning. We've got Chris Swift in the studio, and we'll visit with him in just a moment. First off, let's see where the markets are trading. We'll start with corn. Now, corn with the flash sale last night, 132,000 metric tons to South Korea. This is a market that's been up 8.6% month over month. So we're seeing strength return into the corn market. Old crop 496, 7.25 higher with the December, up 2.25, 467.5. I'm going to warn Chris already in a minute. We're going to look at the 1 month chart for corn. It tells an interesting story. All right, over to the soybean market, 9 cents higher on the front month March. 1067.25. Deferreds are all higher as well. Soy meal has been higher. It was higher yesterday, overnight session higher, and still higher this morning. Meal in positive territory really this entire week. But you look at the month and you look at it for an annual basis, the past 12 months, and it's been under pressure. Just the opposite for beans. Beans have had a good run over the past month, but are taking a break here this morning. Now to the wheat market. We'll start with Chicago, July 2.5 higher, 592.75. The July for hard red, 606.75, up 2.25. And Minneapolis, December, 650.25, down 9. Cotton market before we go to Chris, December new crop, 68.97. It's up 48. Remember, this is we're setting insurance rates for crops this month. And if cotton doesn't find a way to get to upper 80s, I'll bet you we lose quite a few cotton acres in 2025. All right, Chris Swift is with Swift Trading, and I kind of warned you I was going to do this, but wanted to look at the 1 month chart here for corn. Really kind of interesting story. Reminds me of a roller coaster, if you will, but go in the opposite direction. So I'm sure there's a word for that, but what do you see when you look at really these row crops?
Well, it's not going down. And that's the biggest thing that we see right now. And it's kind of a seasonal issue, both. We come into the spring of the year where we know we have maybe too much moisture to plant, not enough moisture in other areas, but we've already done a tremendous amount of our farmer sales for last year. So old crop corn probably going to be tougher to get out of the bins, and you're going to need either a narrower basis or you're going to need a higher price, one of the two, to attract those. And kind of similar to those November beans right there, they're creeping up as well. And that's the one thing that's probably the most interesting is they're just not going down. It's not that they're making any kind of leaps or bounds to the upside, but they're not in a bear market anymore either.
Yeah, and then, we swing over and look at what's been happening with the wheat market. Wow, that tells us a lot there, that even our low back on January 27th was nearly higher than our high in January, that week of the 13th.
Yeah, and wheat's really interesting because around most of the United States, wheat conditions are in really good shape. So I have a feeling that we're looking for a pretty good wheat crop this year.
Okay. How about we take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about something we put out on wheat fields, at least on the southern plains. It's cattle. They graze wheat. We'll come back and talk livestock. Market Day Report continues in a moment. Tighter show list when we look at cash cattle this week, so that might be kind of the foundation for our conversation that we start building in a moment with Chris. But before we do that, let's see how we're trading the cattle market. We'll start with live cattle futures down a dime on the February at 202.87. And again, I'm still somewhat blown away. We're talking about $200 live cattle, $199.82 on the April. That's off 27. Nickel higher on a lightly trading June at 194.52. From live cattle to the feeder cattle market, and the March contract front month 270.42. It's down 7 cents, couple of pennies lower on the April contract at 269.85 now as it turns positive. And the hog trade is higher across the board. January now up 70 cents at 85.02. $1.45 higher on the April, and both June and July holding above the $100 range. In studio, we've got Chris Swift with Swift Trading. And Chris, you know, one of the things we did in the last segment was looking at charts over the past month. Very interesting. We look at what's happened to that April contract, live cattle, over the past month.
No, absolutely, and just sky high more than anything. But if we hold on, we got more cattle coming, and that's probably what's going to be the most interesting. Is we now have a 30-day reprieve from the tariffs. We have the Mexican border open. I have a feeling you'll see one of the largest cattle drives you've ever seen coming across the Mexican border in these next 30 days. In that, if the border stays open or closes regardless, starting in March, you'll have more wheat pasture coming up for them. And you and I were talking earlier about the cow disappearance and why it is so low. And it's not due to slaughter. It is due to a lot of rebreeding of those older cows, allowing us to sell the heifers for the really high money, holding those cows back for maybe a little bit riskier birth. But if it succeeds, it's a really good profit margin on.
Okay, so as we, again, dig in, let's go to that live cattle chart here, because it really just underscores what we've been talking about there with the April live cattle contract. Now, when we back that off to the 6-month look at live cattle, again, just continue to appreciate over time. Let's go from the April live to the April feeder cattle contract, and it's moved higher as well. And when we look at it over the last month, Chris, what are thoughts on, again, that feeder cattle market?
Well, it's a little bit softer, and right now we have an enormous positive basis, which is very, very dangerous because it tells us that the futures market is trading at a significant discount to the cash market. So when we look at where do we want to go buy cattle, we want to buy them in the future. Where do we want to sell cattle? We want to sell them today because today is the highest price out there. So we start to see great expectations. The futures market has broken lower. Now we wait and see if the cash market softens to it. Cash market remains firm, then we'll see the futures go back to the cash.
All right, you made a comment when you came in. You said, what in the world happened? We were looking at one market.
Crude
what
oil.
Market were you looking at?
Crude oil.
Crude
Absolutely.
oil.
Yeah, it's down $2 when I walked out of the office and up 23 now. Unbelievable. It's a huge range, $2 range, over $2 range just for the day.
Yeah, and trading just 3 cents off the day's high. Is volatility the word of the year?
Absolutely.
Or word of the decade, maybe?
Absolutely. It's not going to slow down anytime soon. And with President Trump and the accomplishments that he's trying to achieve here, it's going to continue to be volatile for quite a while.
All right, Chris Swift with Swift Trading. Glad you were here to
Always
break
a
some of
pleasure.
that down for us.
Always a pleasure.
You know, this is the deal. That's because you left the office. That's what happens
That's right,
when
yeah.
you do that.
Now I
Thank
got
you,
it.
Chris.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Tony.
All right.